Today I'm in the beautiful village of Eyam in Derbyshire, central England. While it may not be well known to the world at large, this village and its residents earned their place in the history books way back in the 17th century with their selfless attitude to the prevention of the spread of the Great Plague. The story of Eyam and the Great Plague tells a tale that even today, as we witnessed with the recent pandemic, certain sections of society could learn from. Our story starts back in 1665, when England was in the midst of the worst outbreak of the plague since the infamous Black Death of 1348. The outbreak began in spring in slums outside of London's city walls. The culprit was the bubonic plague, and it was spread by the bite of black rat fleas who carried the bacteria. The rats were attracted by streets filled with rubbish and waste, the poorest areas obviously the hardest hit. As summer arrived, the death rate began to rise, peaking in September when 7,165 Londoners died in just 1 week. Overall, London lost roughly 15% of its population. A total of 68,596 deaths were recorded in the city, although the real total is thought to be much higher, probably more than 100,000. Once infected, symptoms began to show with the swelling of the lymph nodes located in the armpit, groin and neck. Those infected also experienced headaches, vomiting and a fever. 3 out of 10 people infected died within 2 weeks. While the poor died, those who could afford to flee the city did. The rich, including lawyers, doctors, merchants and even the king, fled to the countryside. Charles II and his courtiers left London in July for Hampton Court, before later relocating to Oxford. This movement of the rich from the capital meant that the plague spread quickly across the country into rural areas. However, it wasn't just the movement of people that led this silent killer to spread, as the village of Eyam soon found to its peril when, in late August 1665, a package of cloth arrived from London addressed to the village tailor Alexander Hadfield. Hadfield's unfortunate assistant, George Vickers, received the package and spread the cloth out by the fire to dry. Unknown to Vickers, the cloth was infested with rat fleas. He was dead within days. His burial took place on September the 7th, 1665. The disease spread quickly in the wake of Vickers' death, and soon others started to die. In the 17th century, the church still reigned supreme, and most people believed that prayer was the answer, as the plague was some kind of punishment for their sins. With limited medical and scientific information available back in those days, remedies of the time included bleeding patients with leeches, burning smoke to ward off the bad air that was thought to cause the plague, encouraging people, including children, to smoke, and sniffing a sponge soaked in vinegar. Frightened by the arrival of this fast, efficient killer in their village, the worried residents turned to their local holy man for help. Fortunately, the Reverend William Mompesson and his predecessor Thomas Stanley were also the most educated men in the village, and it was the actions of these two men that helped to contain the disease and prevent its spread beyond the village to the nearby city of Sheffield, as in May 1666 they devised a plan to prevent the plague from spreading further. First, they set up a line of quarantine around the village, marked by signs and boundary stones like these. No one was allowed to cross the boundary, either into or out of the village. So that meant that supplies for the residents had to be dropped here at the boundary stone. Payment for the supplies was made by leaving the money in these water troughs that were filled with vinegar to act as a disinfectant. Another measure was that families had to bury their own dead quickly and near to home, rather than here at the village cemetery, reducing the risk of transmission of the disease from corpses lying around waiting to be buried. The final measure saw church services moved outdoors to a local amphitheatre to avoid further spread of the disease. The measures proved effective and prevented the spread of the plague to surrounding areas. In 14 months, more than 260 villagers died, with just 83 surviving, while other accounts suggest there were around 430 survivors out of a population of 800. The village church, meanwhile, recorded a total of 273 victims of the plague. Whatever the true total, the toll on Eyam was heavy. In one example, Elizabeth Hancock of Riley Farm here buried her husband and 6 children in the space of just 8 days. Yet the knowledge gained by this experiment in epidemic control was to prove extremely valuable in subsequent years. Doctors realised that quarantine zones could prevent the spread of certain diseases, while quick disposal of the dead was effective in containing others, and was successfully used during recent outbreaks such as the Ebola virus in Western Africa. So, although you've probably never heard of this quaint little village in rural Derbyshire, scientists and doctors the world over have used the lessons learned here back in the 17th century to make disease prevention more efficient and the world a much safer place. Alright guys, that's it for today. I hope you enjoyed this little look back in history and a window back into what life was like back in England in the 17th century. If you did, you know what to do. Give me a like, subscribe, hit the bell for notifications. If you'd like to help support the channel, then you know there's 3 ways. Thanks down below, buy me a coffee, or channel memberships. And if you'd like to learn more about this episode, there are a lot of sources online that you can look up, or you can also visit Eyam here. It's a beautiful little place, and they've got a really nice museum with a lot more information about the story that you can go and check out. And that's it for today, guys. Take it easy, and I'll see you next time. Over and out.